Hello, Dr. McLean here. Today I want to talk to you about my story of how I overcame a lot of my immune system issues. Hopes that will help you. I know it always helped me hearing stories of other people that were having success. And in my case, I had over 20 years of dealing with huge immune system issues. And I was never diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder. I never even heard of that until many, many years later. So I think if I would have been tested, I probably would have tested positive, because as I'm seeing more and more patients come into my office with autoimmune disorders, I decided to do more research to try to help these people. As I started going through, I started recognizing all these symptoms like, well, I used to have that, I used to have that, I used to have that. So the symptoms are the end result. That's one of the things you have to remember. But let me share a little about my story and again, give you some tips of what I did to overcome, and hopefully that's going to help you as well, depending on your situation. If you have any questions on this, please comment, and I'll do my best to try to reach out and help you no matter where you're at, and help you to, whether it's online or help you find somebody in your area to help get you through whatever issues that you're dealing with. For myself, I can tell you, I didn't recognize until later how much of an impact it was having on my life and my lifestyle. So I started out when I was very, very young, started having things like ear infections and sore throat. You just kind of assume that's normal as a kid. And part of it is as far as building the immune system, but I was sick all the time. And as I got older, I just kept getting worse and worse. I got mono at one point. I constantly had strep throat or ear infection. I just remember just ear infection after ear infection after ear infection, just going to the doctor over and over, more and more antibiotics. Didn't know anything about nutrition at the time. And as I got into college and started to just really have an interest in health, I started doing more and more research. And I just really wasn't getting well. I worked on my nutrition, I worked on my exercise, and I just really wasn't getting healthy. I started having canker sores, and which I realized is one of the components of autoimmune disorders. I mean, constantly would have these huge canker sores, typically 2 to 3 at a time. They'd be so big. I can remember when I first started dating who's now my wife, my girlfriend at the time, and there was times she'd ask me, she's like, did you get a fat lip or something? Because my lip would be so big, literally from these canker sores, and it made it very, very difficult to eat. It was just so painful, and drinking drinks and things like that. And I can remember taking things like ibuprofen, which is one of the worst things you can do. I found out later for canker sores actually makes those things worse. And then also, along with that, the canker sores can be things like skin rashes, eczema, psoriasis, different things like that. And I can remember literally for years and years and years, I had this huge patch of just like kind of rough skin, of this, I don't know if you called it eczema or what exactly it was at the time, but kind of my buttocks, back of my leg. And it literally, I didn't think about it at the time because it didn't necessarily bother me. It wasn't a huge deterrent, but I can remember every time I get out of the shower and dry myself off, I'm like, oh, I kind of forgot about that. But it was probably a year and a half, 2 years that I was there. So it was a pretty big warning sign. I just kind of ignored it. And then digestive issues. I mean, literally for probably over a decade, the vast majority of the time I would be constipated, and I was really, really gassy. I mean, there wasn't a day that went by that I wasn't very, very gassy. Some days worse than other. And again, all these things I just chalked up to being normal for me. And the last thing that kind of really led me down this path is just the fatigue. And as I got into college and I had all these aspirations and all these goals, these things that I wanted to achieve, and I had these people that I was looking up to, whether I saw them on stage or whether I saw them on videos or read about them in books, they all had high energy. And I was so fatigued and worn out at the time, I thought, man, if I want to be successful, I got to have higher energy. So I just do that. I got to eat better. I got to exercise more. And I've just got to get up, I got to really have good posture, and I'd really work on it. And it just, nothing worked. And it was just so frustrating. So I was thinking to myself in the back of my mind and thinking, I'm not going to be able to get the level of success that I want because all these people have high energy and I don't, and I'm not going to be able to achieve that level. And I tried and tried and tried. So it kind of started to lead me down this path. And again, so you want to be conscious of those things when you're having these warning signs that it's your body trying to tell you something's not right. It wasn't just one little thing. It wasn't like if you're constipated for half a day or a day here and there, that's not a big deal. You can eat some things that can cause constipation. But when it's chronic, year after year after year, that can lead to some bigger issues. And then one thing I forgot to mention is quite commonly I'd have blood in my stool, which can be a sign also of cancer. And I'd have really commonly night sweats. And again, all these things I just thought, well, that's just normal for me. I didn't realize till years later, I'm like, boy, I haven't had a night sweat for a long time now. And it was 2-3 times a week that I'd wake up just drenched in sweat and be all sweaty. So those are warning signs. You want to just recognize though, but you want to look at addressing the cause. Because I was working on these things, but I just didn't have the right information. So one thing you want to recognize, it does take time to heal, right? So don't look for the quick fix. And if you're doing something that's going to improve your health, that's going to lead down the path. So for example, let's say if you change your diet and you started eating really healthy and started eating a bunch of vegetables and your immune system issue didn't go away, don't feel like it's not working. So number one, it might just take more time, But number two, that might not be the direct component, but you don't want to stop eating healthy. Now you need to stop eating healthy, then maybe you need to start working on your stress levels or different things like that. So it's typically going to be multifactorial. The reason that I developed these immune system issues, I don't think it was one thing. I think it was a combination of antibiotics, a lot of processed foods and sugars, a lot of stress, all these things I was going through. I've always been kind of a type A personality like my dad, a real driver, which is a real advantage in certain things in life, but also you got to be able to manage that and have some fun and be able to relax. And that's something I really had to work on. I'm much better, but it's a constant battle for me. So let me just kind of go through the process of things that I started to do. And it wasn't like, again, it wasn't a set regimen because I didn't know these things at the time. It took me, I don't know, 10, 15 years to really overcome these things. Now, if we're to do it again, I think I could do it in a matter of months, maybe 6 months or a year, if I did them all at once, but I just didn't know at the time. So one of the first things I started to do is just start eating healthier foods. I started to learn about more nutrition. As I started to learn more, I thought, oh, okay, that thing's bad for me. I got to stop eating that or reduce that. I've got to start eating this. And so initially, one of the first things I did, I just started to add more vegetables into my diet. I started eating more salads. And at the time, I could tell you, I hated them. I hated eating salads. I wasn't a big vegetable person. And I started eating salads and I would be dumping ranch dressing on there. I'm like, well, I'm getting my vegetables in. I didn't recognize that these ranch dressings, these processed dressings had all these sugars and bad oils in them. But it was a start. So I started eating healthier vegetables. And I wouldn't recommend, if you do that, don't put the bad stuff on or just start eating the good stuff. But that's a good way to start your nutrition. Just start adding good things in. If you're not ready to take things away, just start adding good things. And what that did for me is it started to create momentum. I started to feel a little better. And then the other stuff started to not taste as good. Like, well, these sugars and processed things don't taste as good. And I really have a sweet tooth, so I do have to watch that. And so over time, my nutrition got better and better and better and better. And again, it happened over years because I'd learned something like, oh, I thought this was healthy for me. I used to drink a ton of soy milk and use soy products. And then I started to understand that they're phytoestrogens and they can mess with the estrogen levels in your body and throw your hormones off. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to stop using that and I'm going to switch to this product. And then I'd find out that product was better or whatever. And it would go through these phases. So you don't have to figure it all at once, but just start going down the phases. But nutrition was definitely a big thing for me. And along with that, just cutting out the processed and packaged foods. I mean, I just did a ton of stuff. I used to drink a lot of lattes and sugary drinks. I used to love blizzards, Dairy Queen blizzards. And it doesn't mean you have to be perfect and cut all these things out and never eat those things again. Now, depending on how severe your immune system issues are, your autoimmune disorders, you may have to cut all those things out for a period of time to allow your body to heal. And I'll go into another video, I'll go much more specific into the nutrition, but I want to give you kind of general specific things that I did for myself. So food was a big component, but again, it took me over time to do that. This was a little bit later. Now, I'd always exercised. Since about age 18, 19, I got into high school. I would say skinny fat. I had a lot kind of higher fat levels, but I was also very skinny. I didn't have any muscle mass. And I wanted, like a young man, I wanted to be more muscular. And so I really started to work out. And it took me a really, really long time to put on muscle. And again, at the time, I didn't realize because I was eating a lot of these processed foods and a lot of sugars. By the way, when I first started to learn about, let me just touch back on nutrition for just a minute. When I first started to learn about nutrition, I got really, really strict on my nutrition. And I was eating what I thought was the right thing at the time, really, really low fat, which was also very high in sugar. Again, I didn't know this at the time or didn't understand it anyway. So I was eating a lot of processed and packaged foods. I'm like, well, I'm eating Hamburger Helper. That's not sugary, that's not sweet. Well, not knowing it had a ton of sugar in it because of all these the processed elements in it. And so, so part of it is making sure you're getting your information from a reliable source. And at the time wasn't. I was reading these different magazines, fitness magazines and things like that. And they were like the fad diets at the time. So it wasn't my mental commitment, it was just having the wrong information. So again, just continue to work and make sure you're getting your information from reliable sources, okay? So cutting out the processed foods, obviously. And then, so when I started to exercise, I've been exercising for a long time, but I wanted to put on muscle, so I was lifting really, at least for me, really heavy weights, and I was working out hour and a half, 2 hours a day. I was taking all these protein powders at the time, again, very, very processed stuff, and these supplements that probably weren't very good for me. And so when I finally switched, and this was a little more recently, probably maybe 10 years ago now, I started switching more to a shorter duration workout and higher intensity. So I went from working out hour and a half, 2 hours a day to working out to 15, 20, 30 minutes a day or less. And the cool thing is I got in much better shape very, very quickly. And that was the cool thing for me. So I think, longer duration exercise, it doesn't mean that it's all bad, but when we go past a certain point, your body starts to release stress hormones. So if you're constantly doing, 45-minute, hour-long Zumba workouts or aerobic workouts or going on the elliptical machine for a long time, especially if you're not getting results, then it's not working for you. So I still do longer workouts sometimes, but the vast majority of my workouts are short duration, high intensity. So I still lift weights. I don't go super, super heavy. I'm 44 years old now, so I'm not trying to get all big and muscular. I want to be lean. I want to have higher muscle mass. I want to have low fat, and that works really, really well for me. So look at, don't be afraid to change things up. And you got to figure out, again, what works for you, and that works amazing for me. I kind of went back to the foods here again too, but one thing also was just really cutting out the bad fats and adding in good, healthy fats. So that's really when the gut issues started to change for me, was cutting out these processed foods. I found, canola oil now. So occasionally I'll still have a processed food that's got some canola oil in it, and right away I can feel a difference when I'm gassy, or if I love cereal. I rarely eat it anymore because I know how bad it is for me, just all the sugars and things like that. But if I have a processed cereal, even the healthier version, right away I'm super, super gassy. I paid for it for a long time. And then also recognizing what foods, I mentioned soy products before. Those are something that really made me gassy, and I switched initially to almond milk. And I think almond milk is a really, really good source for a lot of people, but I'm sensitive to almonds. It's like one of the foods that I'm sensitive to, and that's the only symptom I get. I just have a couple almonds, I get super, super gassy right away. So I don't get sick or things like that, but being gassy is kind of uncomfortable, obviously. So I still have lots of nuts, but that's the one food that I don't have anymore. I used to have a ton of almonds. So sometimes it's just a matter of recognizing what the foods are for you. And every once in a while I'll have an almond and try it again to see maybe if my body's healed and I can still have almonds. And the last time I did here just a few weeks ago, I still got really gassy again. So I'll maybe try it again here in the future. Another thing was correcting my spine and nervous system. This is one of the biggest overlooked areas I see with health, is that your brain is your master computer. It runs everything. It runs your gut. It runs your immune system. It tells your body how to digest and break down foods and where to put that food and where to put the nutrition. And today it's very hard not to have spinal issues. So all that information has got to travel through your spine on nerves. So if your spine's out of alignment, it's going to affect how your immune system works. It's going to affect how you digest food. So correcting my spine and nervous system, that's what really put me over the edge and really get things moving in the right direction. And then the last thing, and this is something I'm working on all the time, is my stress levels. Because again, I am a type A personality. I love what I do. I love to work, but again, you've got to balance it. So I don't really consider it work. Like, I love making these videos. I love putting out the products and making the information. And I love working with my patients. To me, that's very satisfactory. But there's also the job of running the business side of it. So there is some things like that. So I've got to force myself also to take some time off, because your brain's got to recharge as well. So I hope this was helpful for you. Please comment below, and please let me know what you're struggling with, and hopefully I can give you some tips on this area, or what maybe from this video. Please comment and tell me what from this video maybe helped you. What are the areas that you're struggling with? And also, what do you want to learn more about? If you're suffering with an immune issue, an autoimmune disorder, or any type of immune system issue, like I said, for me, I realized how much of an impact it was having on my life, on my relationships. And my life is so much easier now because I'm not wasting all that time and energy trying to figure out what's going on, going to doctor's visits, and then stressing about, oh my gosh, what is this? I've got another rash. What is this? And this other symptom showed up. I kind of touched on the major symptoms, but there's a lot of other things that I had going on as well. And how much things I missed because I was sick. Remember many Christmases and things like that, not enjoying the holidays. I was just so sick and not feeling well. So let me know how I can help you. And if you're liking this stuff, please subscribe to my page so we can continue to produce amazing videos for you.